Thank you for joining us for The Drive Back, the movie podcast where we imitate our favorite thing to do after a movie, which of course is to talk about it on the ride home. I'm Garrett, and as always, I'm joined by my good friend and co host, Adrian.
Hello.
And today, we've got a first timers. Been a while since we've done one of these, but what is a first timers, Adrian?
First timer is where both hosts have not seen the movie, so we dig through the archives to find something that neither of us have seen, and then we watch that.
And dig through the archives we did for this one. Today we've got a forgotten creature feature. We're taking a look at the Relic. So all this and more coming up on the drive back. Alrighty, and we're back here today to talk about The Relic. This is... I was the one that put this movie forward for first
Yes, we
timers.
were.
I found it while browsing IMDb like a couple months back, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that movie existed. And then it was like, it showed up in little places here and there. Like, I was getting YouTube recommendations for clips from
Algorithm
it.
got you.
And I was like, what the heck? So I was like, okay, finally, let's go ahead and watch it. So yeah, we'll go ahead and dive into the synopsis first, and then give kind of an overview, and then some spoiler thoughts. So, released in 1997, The Relic is directed by Peter Hyams and stars Penelope Ann Miller, Tom Sizemore, and Linda Hunt. A homicide detective and an anthropologist try to destroy a South American lizard-like god who's on a people-eating rampage in a Chicago museum. Although I think that is wrong. I think she's an evolutionary biologist, not a...
I would argue that, yeah.
Yeah, which is interesting. But that's the story of it. There's no Razzies, no Oscars, nothing like that.
Yeah,
Um,
that makes sense to me.
yeah, go
I think
ahead.
this
What do you
movie
think?
is nothing. Like, I don't think it deserves Razzies. I don't think it deserves awards. I think this movie just, like, probably could
Exists.
have... The reason it was so deep in the archives is because we almost lost it. Like, we almost deservedly lost the film. And that's kind of what this is. Like, zero recognition. You not knowing it existed makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and it's rare when there's a movie that I haven't heard of,
At
and
all. Like, not even
yeah,
like, oh, I think I know that. Like, just not at all.
yeah, like even like what was the other one they had recently that I was looking through? It was like, I think it was The Signal, where I didn't know that movie existed.
Or the objective.
Or The
Either way.
Objective. The Objective was more understandable. Like The Signal, I had at least seen like the cover of on Netflix,
Sure.
but like The Objective, I had no idea. So this was very interesting to watch a movie that I had never heard of. But I agree. It's pretty much. I mean, without going too much into spoilers, it's got some interesting things in it, but I think it's just wrapped up in such a mediocre package that
Yeah.
it's like aggressively mediocre, as like I've said before.
Like, it almost felt like that's what they were going for.
Yeah,
It's so mediocre that you're like, why would you make that choice at all? Like, who signed off? Like, again, it's not bad,
yeah.
but it's like, that's the shot you chose. Like, you could have done one more take and had somebody be like any emotion to this.
Like we'll talk about later though. Could have used a couple more lights in some in some of the
Well,
scenes.
that's the old trick they wanted. They tried to hide everything. But also just like, I mean, obviously the movie's about like an evolutionary creature going crazy, but like, it doesn't really add up the way that like evolution suddenly is able to accelerate at like an insane rate. It just kind of that, yeah, just mediocre. I mean, the whole thing. And the decisions don't really make sense. I mean, yeah, it's pretty strange.
Well, let's go ahead and we're going to drop a spoiler warning for The Relic. If you do want to watch it, it is available to rent, Amazon Prime, pretty much anywhere you can rent movies.
Yeah.
But that is where you can watch it. Now, diving into spoilers, when I did say that there were some interesting things in this movie, that's kind of a two-pronged comment. Number one, the creature and the idea of the creature, I feel, is original. Like, it's a South American, like, god, devil-like figure,
Okay.
which is at least, like, that it has it going for it. I haven't seen that in a movie, maybe in a while, maybe at
I
all.
remember I did see a movie as part of like a Friday night horror show collection that literally had a creature in a box break out in a science facility, and I just don't
Well,
know.
that's a common sort of like I'm talking
Okay.
about like the South American like
Oh,
legend
like the
status.
origins of it. Gotcha.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And the other thing that I think is interesting is that, for better or for worse, this pays homage to a lot of films. I think like basically, I think they were in the writing room, the kind of the conceptual think tank for this movie, and they're like, yeah, Alien, let's do something like that. What
Predator.
was Predator? Let's do something like that. Die Hard. Let's put a little bit of Die Hard in here, and like
Jurassic Park.
a
Let's
little bit,
throw a little bit of that in there.
a little bit of Jurassic. Like they took all these ideas from other movies and they ruined a completely original concept by just over homaging it.
I think it's a book.
You think it's a book?
I'm almost positive that this is a book.
Let me see while you're doing that.
That's as deep as that comment goes. I have I have nothing else to elaborate on.
Relic book. Um, let's see here.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh,
I
it is the basis for the film The Relic. Okay, so there is a book by Douglas Preston and Lincoln Child. It's supposed to be it comments on the possibilities inherent in genetic manipulation and is critical of museums and their role both in society and the scientific community. Interesting.
Interesting.
That's weird. We'll have to check that out. But one of the positive thing I do want to talk about is the visual effects for one thing, because the creature was mostly practical. There's a lot of moments where it was practical,
Yeah.
but then even when there were moments when it's CGI, because of the lighting, it didn't really look bad. It looked pretty decent, actually.
I disagree.
Maybe it was the screen I was watching it on. I was watching it on my
Yeah.
computer, not my TV.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say we both have similar TVs, but
Yeah.
yeah, computer may have been different.
Yeah.
I felt like the fire at the
Oh,
end,
the fire, yes. Yeah.
like when the creature gets skin off. First off, okay, I'll talk about CGI in a second, but that fire scene was like 10 minutes long. That explosion,
Mm-hmm.
like I can jog faster than that explosion went off, and it somehow still caught this evolutionary apex predator. Um, but yeah, I thought the CGI. Maybe it was just kind of the gimmick to me. I felt like they really overhit it. And I get that that's a thing, but like when you actually got to see it, I guess yeah, the practical stuff did look okay. But the CGI, like when it's crawling upside down, is really awkward to me. It just didn't feel very
Yeah,
good.
I think what made me think about it good was one moment where it was following a guy, and one of the like helicopter guys that rappelled down, and it was like running behind him as he was running, and then it captures him, and at one point,
Yeah,
what was that?
the one that wanted to run away, the SWAT guy.
It was like on the floor in the museum.
Oh,
Like,
I know. Yeah, okay.
yeah, so it's like coming up behind him, and then it grabs him, and there's a moment where the guy goes from live action to CG, and the creature goes from maybe practical to CG, where it's CG the whole time, and that sequence, at least on my screen, looked good.
Okay. Maybe they got it all right. Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. Maybe
Was that
again.
are you talking about the decapitation scene?
It's like, yeah, the guy is picked up and he's like decapitated like right in front of the camera.
Yeah.
Which
Which, yeah, I will say it was pretty good. They didn't cut away from it or anything. I mean, they showed
maybe that was a different company
Yeah.
than the other
Maybe that
ones.
was meta.
The early days of Weta.
The rest of it was
Um,
the two. It was
Yeah, exactly. It was an intern's job.
yeah.
But let's go ahead and talk acting in this movie.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, I think everything was pretty rough. I think I would imagine the director said like, yeah, be emotional, but you also have to remember you're a professional. Like everyone hears, so I feel like that created this very strange dichotomy between like people wanting to care about things happening, but also having to throw out like every technical term they've ever heard about evolution in every conversation.
Yeah.
It was just so constant.
Yeah, it's really quite funny, but like it almost feels like the director and the actors knew what kind of film they were making.
Hmm. and they leaned into it.
It's cheesy. Like a lot of
Sure.
this is cheesy, and especially the mayor when
Oh
he
yeah.
calls when he calls the main detective, and he's like, "Hey, you know, my wife's got this really nice dress, really shows off the cleavage. You see my wife's cleavage?" And he's like, "No," and he's like, "Ah, well, who hasn't?" And it's like, it's the stupidest thing. It's the stupidest way to to put conflict into your your movie.
Create a problem where there isn't one at all.
Exactly. It
But
comes off as
it
cartoonish.
reminded me of that TikTok trend going around where it says like how it feels to jump on a call with like executives, and it's always like, I've been drinking a lot of Dr. Pepper these days, and I know they tell you soda's not good for you, but just kill me. Like I love Dr. Pepper. Like that's literally how any like higher up person chats, and that's all I could think about was the mayor. Like, oh, that's just like the president calling and being like some arbitrary conversation that you have to respect and like talk to. It's so dumb.
Oh my gosh, it's just
Yeah, and
yeah,
I think the acting in general, I mean, I don't think anybody stood out. And that's why, like, not for better or worse, I don't even remember like certain people's performances because they were just so flat.
yeah.
Like
Like
it wasn't like they did so bad. I'm like, oh, that one character was terrible. But it's like everyone just existed. This movie just exists.
yeah, exactly.
There's my new
Oh,
cat. For those of you watching on YouTube, my new cat has entered the screen. This is Maple, everyone. She's very shy.
Maple has entered the chat, and she's like, "I love this movie. It is a no." I'm just kidding. But like Tom Sizemore, his personal stuff aside, because I know there's a lot of controversy around Tom Sizemore these days. But like his performances are usually pretty good. Like Saving Private Ryan, he's good in, and most of the things. But he's just forgettable here. Like I think maybe this was just a paycheck thing.
Or maybe helping out a buddy in the industry, like maybe whoever was
Maybe
directing or something was like, oh, I need
or
big name.
or maybe he wanted to do it. And props to him. Like again, like this movie, it's not especially well made. It's not especially well directed or anything. But like, it's one of those movies I feel like everyone was having fun during it.
Totally.
Whether that
Felt
helps it
like a
out or
big
not,
college project.
maybe. Well, I don't know.
No,
I'm
it
not
wasn't
familiar.
called, but I'm saying it felt like that kind of set. Like everyone was just having a good time making a big movie.
And there was some, and you can tell there's money behind this movie. So, but and to your earlier point about hiding the creature a lot more, that I guess that would be another homage because that kind of follows Steven Spielberg's Jaws sort of precedent where you don't show the creature until it's absolutely necessary.
And I respect that decision. I think that's
Which
a better decision than the route some people go. But I'm talking about hiding the creature, even though it's like this is the shot where it should be shown. This is the big CGI, big budget. All the money goes to the shot, and it's all in darkness.
mm-hmm,
That's what I'm talking about hiding it. Like they just didn't show
enough
anything.
of it.
Really. Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to see an updated version of this movie
Ooh,
with current effects. I think it would be
okay.
potentially interesting. Maybe better actors, better director. I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. Like, the best thing I can say about this movie is it feels like it would be an exceptional film that they showed on Sci-Fi.
Yes, like the one
Like,
that's on at 11 p.m. That's like, here's the movie on Sci-Fi Channel, and you're actually like, guys, I watched The Relic last night, and it
yeah,
wasn't terrible.
like there was a Sci-Fi Channel movie that was just like for a Sci-Fi Channel movie was like Oscar potential.
They
But
spent an extra $1,000 on this one.
and I would upgrade it from the 11 p.m. slot. I'd put it on at like 7 or 8 because
Wow,
like
that's early.
you gotta shove like like Velocipaster and like Octoshark on at like 11 o'clock and not like something that's actually supposed to be a little bit more serious
Like the time traveler's astronaut adventure is on later.
with werewolves apparently.
Yeah, he goes
But
to the Lycan planet.
but enough talking about the History Channel.
Yeah.
Ooh, quick dig at the History Channel. I'm just kidding. But yeah, I mean, there's not really much else to say about this movie. It's just, it's there. It exists.
Yeah.
It's not particularly good, but like there are some fun moments. It almost like it's almost similar to like watching a slasher movie where some of the kills are like, oh, that's kind of fun. And I do want to say that the audio cue for the creature, like that wheezing human noise, is a really cool idea, given when you find out what the creature evolved from,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh shit, that's why it sounds like a human being wheezing in the in the corner.
Asthma.
We're not making fun of asthma here.
I have asthma, so I'm allowed to, but I'd love to see the inhaler they strap on that guy. Like, just a massive albuterol inhaler. And then he's fine. Then he's not mad anymore. He just can't breathe.
That's why he's been eating all those hypothalamuses. He just needs it.
He's actually lactose intolerant, and he got into too much milk.
Well, I didn't know if you know, because you said you are asthmatic. When you're using an inhaler, did you know that every single time you hit an inhaler, it's the equivalent of 6 human hypothalamuses?
I don't know what I don't know what that is.
The part of the brain that the creature was eating because it needed it.
That's why he needs it every time he takes it. Oh, that was another thing really quick. When the people are doing the autopsy and that part of the brain is gone, what doctor worth their salt is like, where's the rest of it?
Must have been an underdeveloped human being. Doesn't have a hypothalamus.
Either two things, yeah. They went with underdeveloped, which doesn't make any sense. He's clearly a human being. But it's like, does the monster rip it out so cleanly that they can't tell that part of the brain has been eaten? Like, if I got my arm ripped off, a doctor wouldn't go,
That's odd.
maybe an underdeveloped human being. Like, obviously my arm got ripped off. If a neurosurgeon is looking at my brain and half it's missing, the first thought is not, oh, maybe he just didn't quite grow into it. It's, no, something took half this man's brain.
He didn't grow into it.
It's ridiculous.
But I mean that kind of caps it off for what I have to say about this movie. I don't know if you got anything else.
No, I agree. I think this movie, like, if you have a filing section for, like, the worst movies, and then you have the filing section for the best, and you have kind of like the ones that are on scale, this one is the one that gets lost. It just doesn't have any impact on me, on film, on book adaptations. Like, it just makes no ripples in the ocean, and it's just nothing.
It's just an inoffensive film that, like, again, it's not bad, it's not good, but it gets lost in the shuffle when you qualify things where you'd put them. Out there somewhere, this is someone's guilty pleasure. And I can see why. There's definitely aspects that could make it a guilty pleasure. Even a cult classic,
Definitely
maybe.
make this fun to watch, or laugh at characters, or just have emotional investment in one character's plot line that's way over the top. You can definitely make it fun.
Yeah, definitely. It would be a fun drinking game, too. Somewhere in there.
Every time the monster can't breathe.
I don't know why we have to keep justifying it being a good drinking game. Maybe we just want to drink so much.
I think it's a valid point, though. I think
Very
movies they can be fun.
But all right, well, that's going to bring us to some final thoughts. Adrian, what did you give this the Relic? We kind of talked about this already, but any final thoughts before score?
I just think this movie's nothing, so I give it a 33.
All righty, very well. As far as my final thoughts, I said, well, it has some fun moments here and there. It feels like and it feels like an homage to several different films. The Relic never feels particularly memorable or interesting, which is just a shame given its unique premise and location. Because of that, I gave it a 35. We're actually really close.
Nice.
Like 35 is not a bad score. It's just not. It's just nothing interesting.
Yeah, no, just super plain.
But that's going to bring us to an end for this episode. Adrian, where can people find us online if they don't know where to look already?
The Drive Back Podcast on YouTube. If you got to meet Maple, then you're obviously here. Go ahead and subscribe. Follow. We post every Monday. Hit the bell so you make sure you know. We have episodes literally every Monday. Different stuff, different content. We cover a ton of movies. I don't even want to count the number of movies we've covered so far. The Drive Back Podcast on Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen. We're on there as well. Make sure to follow, again, every Monday. And then the Drive Back Podcast on Instagram if you want to chat with us or give us a follow or even find out about what we do in our personal lives, which is under lock and key, but you can find out if you're in the club on Instagram.
Absolutely. That is absolutely right. Next week, we are going to have a new Rewatchables episode. We are going to be taking a look at the film that has like always been on every cable network movie channel, sci-fi channel, everything like that, just because it's a it's such a classic film. We're going to be taking a look at The Abyss, the James Cameron sci-fi deep water movie. It's been a while since I've seen it, so it's going to be good to go back, see some groundbreaking visual effects for the time, which is going to be a lot of fun, and probably the movie that created James Cameron's desire to dive down and, as South Park said, raise the bar.
I would agree. I think I'm very interested to rewatch it. I've seen it a ton of times, but not recently. So I think there's going to be some fun stuff to take a look.
It's always fun to watch the movies too. Like, the whole point of the rewatch was to watch it through that critical lens that we've gained over almost the last 2 years. June's going to be 2 years this is coming up on.
Crazy.
But that is going to be it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure you subscribe, follow, comment, like, hit the bell, all that stuff like Adrian already said. And we will see you next time here on The Drive Back. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Drive Back. Make sure to be on the lookout for new episodes every Monday, and make sure to follow us on social media.